wash him down with lye soap every morning. She would check his teeth like a horse. She looked in the toilet at his feces to see if there was tapeworms. But mind you, it was a time that there were...
This is a special report from News Channel 4.
Good morning, everybody. I am Jane Hansen in the News Channel 4 studio this morning to bring you some news. We are looking at a picture now of the World Trade Center, and we have an eyewitness on the telephone who tells us that he has seen an airplane crash into the World Trade Center. His name is Tony Arrigo. He is on East 12th Street. Tony, can you please tell us what you witnessed?
Yes, I can tell you what happened. I was taking the garbage out of the building when we heard this roaring engines coming. We looked up and there was a plane. Next thing you know, we heard boom. We ran up to the corner and hit right into the World Trade Center.
Tony, can you tell us what kind of an airplane is it?
It had to be a 737. It had to hit the World Trade Center. It was a big, big plane.
Okay, and what do you see at this point?
Oh, smoke and screaming and, screaming engines, and all the fire engines and police departments are all traveling down that way. Oh, my God almighty, the black smoke all over the place. I hope nobody, there's got to be somebody killed in it and poor people that went to work.
Well, Tony, we don't have any confirmation from any officials of this happening. Just repeat again, you were just going outside.
I was bringing the garbage out to the freight entrance when we heard this roaring engine. We looked up and there was the plane. Next thing we know, in a matter of seconds, we heard a boom. We went to the corner, and there it was, right in the middle of the World Trade Center.
Where are you standing right now, Tony?
I'm right in the building right now.
Okay, and what do you see at this point?
Oh, people all staring up there, looking at it and all. Oh, my God, the smoke is coming out, black billow smoke.
Okay, you can see we are physically looking at one of our sky cams right now. We can see billowing smoke from the top of the World Trade Center, Tony.
Yeah.
Are there other people that are around you at this point? Is everybody in pretty much of a state of shock?
Oh, of course they are. People are all in shock. The people in the building are in shock, going out. My God almighty, this is a real disaster. This is worse than the one that hit the Empire State Building back in 1939 or 38, whenever that was.
Okay. Tony, how long ago did you witness this happening?
Oh, come on, 10 minutes ago.
10 minutes ago?
That's about all.
Okay. And again, we're putting our camera in. We are pushing our camera into the top of the World Trade Center, and we can see that there appears to be some fairly significant damage to the top of it.
Oh, yes, there's got to be at least 15 floors that were hit with the plane.
Tony, you know, I'm keeping asking you to describe this for me because as I'm telling...
What had happened was I was taking the garbage out of the building to go into the freight entrance to dump it. When I heard this big roaring going, what's going on? I looked up, and there's this plane zooming right over, not too high up. And then the next thing I hear in a few seconds was boom. So I ran up to the corner, and there it was, right in the middle of the World Trade Center.
Tony, we are looking at the World Trade Center as we speak. I can witness that there appears to be some things falling off of the building as we are looking at it.
It's got to hit at least 7, 8, 15 stories it had it banged into.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and it's halfway in the building.
Okay. And again, let me reiterate what we appear to be watching. Again, we have only an eyewitness and only what we are showing you on our live sky cam at this moment. But there does appear to be a plane of some sort that has crashed into the World Trade Center. If you look, it appears the top...
almost on the top. Almost
at the top. Okay.
Three-quarters up.
Yeah, at least three-quarters, if not, you know, very close to the top. But we can see that the building, there is a lot of structural damage, and there is a lot of smoke.
Structure. Yes, ma'am. I just hope nobody I wish they weren't there. Oh, my God, this is a real disaster if anybody's gone to work.
Tony, thank you very much. We appreciate your sharing this, what you witnessed with us.
My pleasure. Thank you. I'm at 31 East 12th Street.
Okay, we are now going to go to another eyewitness, Ed Buda. Ed, can you please tell us what you witnessed?
All right, I was ready to get on the ferry, and people started yelling and screaming, and smoke and flames were coming out towards the top of the building. And I'm still on the ferry now, and I can see it. Smoke is coming out of both sides, so whatever went into it, it looks like it just went right through it. It's really bad. A lot of people. I just heard somebody say that they thought it was a 737 that went through the building.
Mm-hmm, but you, at this point, you cannot physically see any remnants of an airplane or anything such as that. Can you not? Ed? Ed, are you still on the telephone with me? That was Ed Buda, another eyewitness who was on a ferry, and apparently we've lost our contact with Ed at this hour. But take a look at these pictures. They are live pictures. Our Skycam that is looking at one of the World Trade Center buildings from Lower Manhattan. You can see that there has been some sort of damage to this building. At this point, we do not know exactly what happened. We have had an eyewitness named Tony Arrigo, who was on East 12th Street, looked up into the sky, and he says it appears to him that an airplane struck the upper portion of that building. We are now going to go to Mary Corza on the telephone, who is another eyewitness. Mary, can you tell us what you saw? Mary? Mary, are you there?
I am here.
Mary, can you please tell us what you saw and where you are?
I'm at 14th Street and 5th Avenue, and we saw a plane flying low overhead, which caught all of our attention. We looked up. It was making a beeline for the World Trade Center. It was very low, extremely low. Not a big plane like an airliner, but not a tiny propeller plane either. A small jet plane.
We can now see flames coming from the building. It appeared to you that the airplane was directly aimed at the World Trade Center?
It did appear that way to many of us that were here on the ground, yes.
Okay.
And when it hit, there was the big boom, a big cloud of smoke, some flames, and then mostly smoke. It just started flaming now.
Have you witnessed any people coming out of the building? Have they been able to tell you anything at this point?
No, I'm all the way up on 14th Street, so I can't see the building down below. It was only maybe a minute or two before you could hear sirens coming, so they did alert people right away, obviously, but you probably have a better fix on how many floors were damaged. It looks like quite a few floors. Yeah, from what we're looking at, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I would say 15 to 18 stories, and there is debris falling off that building as we speak. You did see shattered glass raining down after it hit, and, like I said, a big cloud of smoke. But you couldn't tell much more from 14th Street.
Now, we had an earlier eyewitness that told us he thought it appeared to be a 737. What you saw was a small, perhaps twin-engine airplane?
No, not a twin-engine. It was a jet of medium to smallish proportions. Not a big airliner, though.
Okay. Okay, so it appeared to be a... And you heard this sound. I'm just trying to understand what happened. You heard a sound. That's what compelled you to look up into the sky.
Right, you could hear a jet coming overhead, and it sounded low. So many of us looked up to see what was, because it sounded so close. We all looked up, and like I said, it didn't look like it was swerving or out of control. It was going steadily lower. It was, definitely going steadily lower, but it wasn't dropping like nose first or anything that would make you think that the plane was in trouble.
Right. Which then, of course, raises the question exactly what was that airplane doing and how did this occur?
Right.
But the airplane did not appear to be in trouble to you.
I don't know enough about airplanes to know what it should look like, but it wasn't nose down or it wasn't swerving up and down or left and right. It was making a straight, steady decline towards the World Trade Center.
Mary, I'm hearing what sounds to be an awful lot of people that are either crying or sobbing or something in the background.
That's my baby wondering why I'm still standing here. But there are a lot of us who are shaking or with tears coming down our faces because it's mind-boggling to think about how many people are up there who, aren't anymore.
Exactly. And Mary, again, thank you very much. I appreciate your comments with us this morning. And I'm certain it was quite a frightening sight to have watched this. Let me reiterate what we think you're looking at. And again, we have no confirmation of exactly what happened, but it is obviously clear that something has hit the World Trade Center, shattering the windows and much of the building from what appears to be perhaps the top 15 to 20 stories of the building. We can see thick black smoke. We have seen flames erupting from it. We can tell you that we've had we've 3 eyewitnesses on the telephone. Mary Koza, who's been on the phone with us, has just told us that it appeared to be a medium-sized jet. She heard a sound, a buzzing sound, looked up, and she saw this airplane going into the building. Now, Mary said she did not know if the airplane did not appear to her to be in any kind of trouble, but again, she obviously said to us she did not know enough about airplanes to know exactly what happened. We obviously at this moment are trying to find out exactly what did happen. There are numerous emergency vehicles and officials that have raced to this scene. We do not know in terms of injuries or fatalities. We have absolutely no information about that at this point in time. All we can tell you is that something has obviously crashed into the World Trade Center, and our eyewitnesses have told us it was an airplane of some sort. There have been some reports it might have been a 737. Others have told us it could be a medium-sized jet of some sort. And again, we had a gentleman tell us that he was simply taken out the garbage, and
I can talk.
And that he looked up in the sky and he saw this happen. And of course, there was a lot of shock and a lot of sadness from the people who looked up into the sky and witnessed this just a short time ago. You can see we have Chopper 4 is now on the scene. April and Monica, what can you tell us from your vantage point?
Well, we can see right here as we were coming up the Hudson River, we can see thick black smoke indicating the fire is still going on right now in the World Trade Center. For as far as the eye can see, and you can tell right here at the top of this tower, there's a huge gaping hole, flames still inside, thick black smoke still coming out. We have not been able to see what, if any kind of an aircraft is inside the building. This is the best vantage point right here, and as you can see, just a huge gaping hole throughout the entire side of this tower right now.
April, can you see down to the street to see what might be going on down there? Are there signs of the people that have evacuated the building? What can you tell? Can you see anything down there, or are you simply not close enough at this point?
We are simply not close enough right at this point. We are following the smoke in the air right now. There are several boats and watercraft, as we can see, in the river right now. We'll try to get a better vantage point and see what we can see on the ground. It's a little difficult from the air because the buildings kind of shadow the streets, but no doubt a lot of activity on the ground right now.
And in terms of the firefighting capabilities, when you get up to this high level, I assume the firefighters have got to get up there and, you know, fight it from inside. Oh. If you're taking a look now, you can see that we've just had another explosion, and that is considerably lower. And is that in the other building? Is that what I'm witnessing?
That apparently does look like it is in the other building at this point.
And that looks to be lower, which means there, you know, obviously there are considerable numbers of stories above that explosion that we just saw. Perhaps we can get another look from one of our sky cams that can take a different angle. Yes, you can tell that it now appears that both buildings are suffering some kind of damage this morning. My colleague Glenn Walker has just joined me here in the studio, and Glenn, I don't know if you've received any other information, but perhaps you can again go over what we do know at this point, which is pretty much visual and what eyewitnesses have told us.
Well, I would hate to speculate, but you know, that looks like a completely separate incident right there. I mean, this building has been the subject of terrorist attacks in the past, and I certainly wouldn't want to speculate at this time, but that is a separate explosion.
Yes, it is.
In the other building. Now, we have tried to get a hold of the Port Authority, which manages the building. We haven't been able to get an answer. We did call MTA, and the MTA says a subway service as of right now is continuing, so that's not a problem because it's obviously very below, but I imagine that will change very quickly after what we just witnessed. That was a dramatic explosion. Again, it was in the separate tower than the one to where the plane just crashed into about a half hour ago.
Yes, and again, there was no sign of any airplane close to that explosion, nor was there any reason to believe it would be that it could have been an after effect or a repercussion of the original, what we believe was an airplane going into one of the Twin Towers, and both of them now appear to be on fire. We have no word of casualties, injuries, fatalities. What you can see is heavy, heavy black smoke. You can see flames. How far down do you think that goes on the second of the World Trade Center
I would say
buildings?
that is probably maybe 7, 8 floors below from where the plane crashed into the original fire that we saw in the separate building. But that, as I said, that looked like It just looked like an explosion. It had nothing to do with the plane crashing into the first building.
Exactly, and of course there are thousands of employees in those buildings. It is a regular work day. We have no information about anybody who is inside there and what kind of shape they might be in. We, at this point, are seeking confirmation of exactly what happened, particularly what just happened with this second apparent explosion. And I don't even know.
We're going to look at the tape of this last explosion. Maybe we can pick up something here. We said we were talking about what was going on, and then suddenly there was a big explosion in the second building.
There it is.
There it is right there.
Seems to be completely unrelated to the first one.
I didn't catch it, but I have to say it looks like something went into the building.
Yes,
possibly another airplane.
Well, perhaps from the other side, because we've only got the one vantage point here. What we can tell you about the building on the right is that eyewitnesses have told us that I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
we have another witness on the phone. Arlene Morris, are you there?
I am.
Can you tell us what you saw?
Yes, I was sitting at my desk and I heard this big boom, a loud sound. And when I looked out the window, the top floor on the World Trade Center, there's flames just coming down, crashing down to the ground on the west side. All the cars, and they were like running into each other, and the flames just started coming down real hard. Then another sound exploded again, another impact.
What building are you in? How far away?
I'm in the World Finance Center, but my window is opposite side to the World Trade Center. I'm in the C Tower.
Did you just see another explosion?
No, I heard it because I'm holding on the phone with you. So I heard another big boom again. It just exploded again.
Do you see people leaving the building?
We left. Everybody left already. I'm the only one here on my floor. I gotta get out.
But what can you tell us about the build? Can you see people on the ground from the two?
At the bottom, yes, and then the fire brigade, and they came. Everything else, they're downstairs there right now.
Do you see people that are injured? What can you?
No, I can't. I'm on the 28th floor.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's minute to my vision. I really can't see too much.
All right. Thank you very much, Arlene, and please get out of that building and seek safety.
Thank you. I'm leaving right now. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, be safe. We have another witness, Janice Huff, on the telephone. I'm not sure if it's our Janice Huff, but she apparently was a witness to the second explosion.
You saw this? Where are you?
No. Listen, I'm watching TV right now.
Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, I can see the pictures that we have of the building, the first building, the one with the tower on the top. And as I'm watching it and you're talking, I see a plane flying behind the other tower, and I see it getting closer and closer to the building, and I'm thinking, is that a plane? And it was, and all of a sudden, I see this explosion in the other tower. So there was another plane.
So there was another plane with a second explosion.
Well, from what I am looking at on television, from the angle that I was looking.
Here's a replay right here, I believe.
When I was watching looking at the first tower, I noticed that there was a small plane coming around the side of the building. You see it there on the right?
I see it. I see
so
it.
It's coming down.
I do see it right there.
There it is right there.
I see it.
And then it goes boom right there. Watch.
That's
there it is.
You're absolutely right.
Oh, my goodness.
So I don't know if it's a helicopter or a plane, but it was certainly flying, and it went right into the building.
It was a plane.
Can we show that again, please? I clearly did not notice that the first time.
Right.
I think we need to take a look at that again. You know, obviously, what we are looking at are the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in flames. We know nothing yet about the number of people, what has exactly happened there. We can only tell you what we have witnessed and what eyewitnesses have told us. Now, here we're going to look at this tape again. Here it comes.
I think we definitely have to open this up to speculation. This could be a deliberate attack.
Yes. Okay. Now, up on the right-hand side of our screen, let's take a look, and we will show you what Janice has pointed out to us. There it comes. It's not in the screen yet.
It's not in the screen yet.
Up on top. There it is. You see it coming down.
Do you see that coming in? You can see that. It looks...
It goes between the two buildings.
And it's coming right for it.
Right there.
Yep.
Right there. There it is.
There.
It's right for it.
Obviously, we know nothing more than what we're looking at. We should tell you at this point that all 3 New York City airports have been shut down. We know nothing about who or what might be responsible if indeed this was an attack. Again, we've had eyewitnesses on the telephone talking about the first explosion. We had 2 people that told us that they saw an airplane, medium-sized airplane, going into the first tower, and then we just showed you what we saw on the videotape.
Yes. Let's go to April and Monica up in Chopper 4 with some more information. April?
April, can you hear us? I guess we'll get to April in just a moment. I know that they've certainly made April and any of the other choppers who are in the area trying to cover this story back off, because obviously what they want to do is get their work done in terms of rescue and getting people out of there.
Now, as you just mentioned, all 3 airports are closed, and I would imagine especially after seeing that second airplane crash into the second tower, I would imagine that the military right now is up in the skies, and I'm sure that they are certainly scanning the area for any more aircraft that could possibly be trying to come into the area.
You will remember that the World Trade Towers were the subject of an attack. How many years ago was it now? 10, 11? I can't even remember for sure. But again, there has been a lot of security there. There has been obviously they've been very consistent in keeping those buildings rather secure. So once again, we
always secure at the bottom.
That's right.
You know, you can't get in from ground level, but obviously very vulnerable up in the sky.
Exactly. So let us, again, reiterate what we know and what we think we know, because this is something that happened about 25 minutes ago.
Yes.
There were 2 explosions. The first one happened, maybe it was a half an hour ago. And there were eyewitnesses that told us on the first of the towers, the one that is closest to me, or closest to your screen, I should say, eyewitnesses told us they witnessed an airplane that apparently was making a beeline for that building. And there was an explosion, and you can see the damage. Then,
just a couple of minutes ago, we saw a second explosion. When we went back and looked at the videotape, it was very clear that a plane was coming. It was very clear that a plane was coming from the right over the Hudson River and went between the 2 buildings and then slammed into the second building. That was the second explosion. First time we saw it, we didn't really catch the plane, but after a call from Janice Huff, she pointed it out to us, and sure enough, a second aircraft looked like it made a deliberate beeline for the second tower, and we saw that explosion just a little bit lower than the original explosion in the first tower.
Obviously, this is already having quite an effect on the city of New York. Here take a look at this video. Let's just look at this one more time. There you see the plane.
Between the 2 buildings.
And then you see the explosion.
Right there. Unbelievable.
Let us tell you that all of the airports in the New York City metropolitan area are closed down right now. Subway lines 1, 2, 3, and 9 have all been, the service has been, it's been cut off for the moment. And we will continue to bring you up to date on what is going on, and we actually, you know, are hoping we'll be able to talk to somebody from the mayor's office in just a few minutes to see what they might know.
Okay, right now, let's, as you can see, the Chopper 4's had to back off. Let's go back to April and Monica up top. April?
Okay, what we can tell you right now from up here in Chopper 4, we cannot get any closer than about 5 miles to the scene because we need to keep this far back. But you can see the black smoke as far as we are away. We can zoom in here for you. First, you saw the smoke from the 1 tower. Then we witnessed an explosion on the other tower. Now, we think that there was a plane that actually headed into that second tower at some point, and that's what caused that second explosion. We are unable to get close enough to actually show you or tell you what's going on at the ground, but an unbelievable sight here from above the Hudson River at this vantage point. Back to you.
I'm just looking at the wire service at this point, and it tells us that the FBI is investigating reports of a plane hijacking before the World Trade Center crashes. Now, that's all they're telling us. We know nothing more than that. But again, what's been happening here this morning, we have no absolute confirmation of anything other than what we can see with our own eyes. And now the FBI is telling us that there has been some sort of a plane hijacking that they're investigating.
Yeah, we have another witness on the telephone right now who actually saw the second explosion. Elena?
Cortella. Elena, can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you clearly.
Where are you? Tell us what you saw.
Well, actually, I was washing my dishes at my window, and I heard a very low plane, which usually does happen, but when I looked up, it was like I was actually gliding with it, and I saw it actually went straight into one of the Twin Towers. It was like it was it sunk right into the floor. It disintegrated instantly.
Can you tell us what kind of an airplane it was?
It looked like a huge 747. It was a big airline. It wasn't a small jet. It was a big carrier.
And you couldn't see anybody? Could you see a pilot or any such thing?
No, I actually was. It was like side by side. It was like I was right behind it. It was huge. I couldn't believe how low it was. I was telling my roommate, this plane is very low. And I actually saw it go straight into the Twin Towers. Like, why is he going into the building? It was like it was almost deliberately glided into the building.
Elena, where exactly do you live? Where did you see this from? Battery Park City?
No, I'm in the East Village on 13th Street.
And you then saw the plane go into the building, and I assume you saw the resulting...
You better believe it. I saw an explosion like I have never seen, and all I can say is those people, I don't know, but they're all definitely disintegrated. It was the most awful thing I've ever seen. It was so sad. I was like a nervous wreck.
Well, I don't blame you. I appreciate you.
It really was awful, and all I can say is we should pray for those people, because it looked to me that it was deliberate. Unless the pilot had a heart attack, it was like this big 747 just went right into the floor of the Twin Towers.
Well, Elena,
yes.
We thank you very much for calling us and giving us this information.
Absolutely.
And, you know, obviously stick with us, because we are going to find out what happened. We just simply do not know for sure yet, other than the fact that airplanes ran into both of the Twin Towers about half an hour ago. 18 minutes apart was one attack from the other. I shouldn't call it attack. One ramming into the tower to the other. So.
But you say we are getting reports that the FBI is investigating possibly these two planes have been hijacked, and I would have to think if she's correct, and it was a commercial airliner that went into the second building, then I think we've definitely got a very serious situation. Well, obviously we have a serious situation anyway, but without going too much into speculation, I think we are definitely possibly looking at a terrorist attack here.
What we do not know, the FBI has not said where they are investigating the reports of the planes being hijacked from.
Right.
Obviously, it had to be a fairly recent hijacking, if that's indeed what happened, because there were no previous reports that would have led to any kind of speculation about what was going to happen next. If we might, could we take a look at that video one more time that shows the second explosion? The first explosion happened at about 10 minutes to 9 this morning. The second one was about 18 minutes later. And here we were on the air, and this is what we saw. Look over to, you're going to look over to the right of the screen, and in just a couple of minutes, as we widen out here, you will see what it appears to be a relatively small aircraft moving into the shot. Do you see it in the upper right? Coming in. And there you see it.
Absolutely incredible.
Again, we have no knowledge of who was in that airplane, who was piloting it.
We don't, if it was hijacked, we don't know if it was full of passengers or not.
We do not know. We simply know at this point that we have the tops of two towers that are clearly in flames. We are going to continue to seek out the information for you. Let's reiterate what our eyewitnesses have told us.
Well, we had the first plane crashing into the tower, which, if you're looking at your TV screen, would be on your right. We had a few phone calls. People said it looked like the plane deliberately went into the building. Some people were not too sure. And about 18 minutes later, right here on live television, the second plane came into the picture and crashed into the second tower a little farther down. And the witnesses we just talked to on the telephone just a few minutes ago, she said that she saw it fly by the window of her apartment building. She lives on the Lower East Side, and she said that it looked like a commercial airliner to her.
Yes, she said it looked like a relatively huge airplane.
Yes.
And again, the FBI is investigating reports of at least one plane hijacking and possibly two. Let's go to the telephone once again. We have Kay Cummings on the phone. Kay, what can you tell us?
I was watching the Channel 4 and the World Trade Center, which I can see really clearly from my window, and there was a big plane that was heading right straight for the second tower. It looked like a commercial plane, not a small plane, and I kept thinking, this is too low, it's too low, it's too low, and then it went right in. And you could see it was headed right for it.
Now, was this the first plane or the second?
Second plane.
The second plane.
I didn't see the first one.
And where exactly are you?
I'm on 12th Street in Hudson, and I have an unobstructed view of the World Trade Center from my bedroom.
Okay, and that airplane appeared to you to be a pretty good size as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, it looked like a commercial airplane. It came from the Jersey side, southwest side, coming toward the World Trade Center, very low.
We have now reports on the wires that the FBI is investigating this as foul play, a crime here, obviously. Mm-hmm. Looks like this is definitely deliberate.
Kay, what can you tell us about what you can see from the neighborhood right now? Do you see? I mean, can you see the street at all? Can you see anything?
No, I'm I'm in the village.
Okay.
All I can tell you is that there are loads of fire engines and police cars and sirens all heading down.
And as we are looking at live pictures, our Skycam view, I assume you're seeing somewhat the same view from your windows. You can see it still appears to be burning pretty much out of control.
You can see the fire, and I can see the fire in the second building and the first.
Mm-hmm. And you've seen debris falling off?
Yes. Now there's a helicopter. That's fine.
Yeah.
And obviously this is a situation because of the height of the buildings. It's going to be very hard for the fire department to get up there and put these fires out.
Absolutely. Kay, we thank you very much. I assume that you were pretty shocked when you saw what happened before your very eyes.
It was horrible. It was just one of those things you see and you can't stop. It was just, I don't know. I've never seen anything like that. It was horrible.
Okay, we of course have seen something similar to this back in February of '93. That of course was when the terrorist bombing of the World Trade Center, and that was of course a major disaster, and a lot of fatalities there. And this is obviously very frightening to have this happen 8 years later like this.
Well, it is, and again, they put huge security measures in play for getting into those structures. But as you pointed out earlier,
they're vulnerable from the sky.
They're vulnerable apparently from the sky.
Yeah.
Let's just tell you that we have no word at this point about injuries, fatalities, or anything like that, and we certainly would not want to speculate at this point. Emergency crews are on the scene. We will bring you what information we can get from them as soon as we get it. Now, as we said in Washington, the FBI is investigating reports of a plane hijacking before these crashes. There are two planes that apparently have been involved. We have physically witnessed one of them on our live camera. We do not know exactly what planes they were, what size they were, but our eyewitnesses have told us they appear to be pretty good-sized airplanes.
Well, maybe there's a little discrepancy on the first plane. Some people are saying it was a smaller craft. Some people are saying it was a larger craft, but definitely the witnesses we've talked to as far as the second explosion said that it definitely was a commercial airliner that crashed into the second tower. Again, the FBI is investigating this as foul play, which I think is pretty obvious at this point. And, you know, we'll just have to wait and see what happens here. But this is...
Oh. Okay, we've told you that the airports in the New York City metropolitan area are closed down. We have told you that the 1, 2, 3, and 9 subway lines are shut down for the moment. Let us go to Katie McGee over at Shadow Traffic, because there has to be other huge traffic impacts at this moment, Katie.
Jane, this is enormous. Right now, all your Hudson River crossings closed. No one moving in or out of town at the Lincoln, the Holland, or the GW Bridge. I'm looking at the inbound Lincoln live from my vantage point right now. They're starting to turn buses around. I've not seen anything like this before. All bridges and tunnels, you're going to find closures. No one allowed in or out of the city right now from what we're hearing. You did mention the subways. 1, 2, 3, 9, and are suspended. Newark, Kennedy, LaGuardia airports closed to all air traffic at this point.
Katie, and any of the other sky cams that we have, do you see mass traffic confusion? What do you see on some of those bridges and tunnels at this moment?
What I can tell you right now, I'm looking live at the inbound side of the GW Bridge, and what we can see are the tolls. Everyone completely stopped. There is some traffic coming outbound over the span. I can also see people from the Cross Bronx heading into there, but right now no one allowed into town at all. At the Lincoln Tunnel, it is at an absolute standstill. I can see one bus on the outbound side trying to turn around and look like he's heading back into New Jersey from what it looks like.
Okay. Thank you very much, Katie. We stay in place, please, because we will be back to you shortly.
Okay, Jane, something just crossed the wires. As a senior government official speaking on the condition of anonymity said the agency is pursuing reports that one or both of the planes were hijacked and that the crashes may have been the result of a suicide mission. The source stressed that the reports are preliminary and officials do not know the cause of the crashes. But this is a quote, "It certainly doesn't look like an accident."
Well, again, can we reiterate what we do know? Because as you can imagine, this is pretty shocking to people in the metropolitan area to just even look at these pictures. What we have been told by eyewitnesses is that they saw apparently fairly large-size aircraft going into the first of the World Trade Center towers, the one on your right as you're looking at the screen. That was at about 10 minutes to 9. Then, about 18 minutes later, there was apparently an airplane, because we could see that from our own sky cams and our Chopper 4 video, that went into the second tower, and there was a resulting explosion there.
Okay, Jane, we have another witness on the telephone. Todd Hollerman, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Where are you, and what did you see, Todd?
I'm at 330 West 42nd Street. I saw a huge plane come in from the water and crash into the side of the building.
Which water? You talking crossing the Hudson?
Right.
Now, this would be the second explosion?
Right.
And from your vantage point, could you tell what kind of an airplane it is? There seems to be a lot of confusion about that.
It looked huge. I couldn't tell exactly what kind it was. It was just tremendous. I was just saying to my coworkers, look at the size of this thing. It looks like, some kind of stealth fighter or something.
And what you saw, was it deliberately aiming for the building? It didn't appear to be a plane that was in any kind of trouble, anything like that.
Right. I mean, I thought I was watching like a movie scene. It was moving in quickly. It was moving in close, and then it was just, boom.
Did you see any insignia on that airplane?
No, I didn't.
And you then saw it hit the tower.
Right.
And I'm just curious, did you at that point see any other, reaction? Did you hear anything? Did you see anything when you saw that initial explosion?
No, I'm not close enough to really hear anything, I don't think, but I'm just looking out my window right now in shock, watching this thing burn.
Yeah, as we all are, Todd, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your information.
Sure.
Jay, we just learned that President Bush was in a classroom in Sarasota, Florida, reading to some students. His chief of staff, Andrew Card, whispered in his ears and told him what was going on, and the president will be coming up in just a couple of minutes, and he will give us his reaction on what is going on. And
again, we have not heard from emergency workers on the scene to know the extent of the damage or the injuries at this point. One would have to assume on a day like today, a normal work day in New York City, 9 o'clock in the morning, most of those offices were probably open.
Yes.
And there were certainly a lot of people in those two buildings. To our knowledge, people on the lower levels have been evacuated, but at this point we simply cannot bring you any information about what is going on.
There's
now,
one of those Hudson River crossings that Katie McGee was talking about. You see the George Washington Bridge, traffic has absolutely stopped. Traffic going into the city, you can see on the bridge, there's absolutely no cars whatsoever.
Let us just tell you that you really cannot get in or out of this city at this moment
Actually,
in
you
time.
can get on the outbound. They were letting cars come out over to New Jersey.
Right, but you cannot get into the city.
Absolutely, can't get into the city.
All the airports are shut down. The subway lines, 1, 2, 3, and 9, are shut down at the moment. We do not know when anything will get back to normal. And again, to reiterate the point about the FBI is said to be investigating whether or not there was some hijacking of a couple of airplanes involved in all of this.
Also, an anonymous government official said that it would appear that this was not one but two suicide bombings, that the pilots deliberately turned the planes right into each of the towers at the World Trade Center, and obviously you can see the disastrous result right here on our screen.
Let us go to Richard Thompson on the telephone. He is a licensed pilot and he witnessed this. Sir, from taking a look at what you saw, what can you tell us as a pilot about those airplanes?
Well, I was sitting in my office on the 8th floor at 632 Broadway at approximately 9:47, and at 9:47, give or take a minute.
You mean 8:47, don't you, sir?
8:47 this morning. The plane went by probably 50 to 100 feet above the building, streaking directly towards the World Trade Center, and it was a small business jet of some type. It was going so fast, and my window view is so short, but I could hear it screaming by at basically full power, no engine problems, going straight for the building.
And by the time that I could get out of my chair, open the window to see what the hell was going on, it had hit the building, and that was probably a total of 5 to 7, 8 seconds.
So that would have been the first
that was the first.
The explosions.
Exactly, and it was directly, everyone was flying the plane was directly...
Richard, stay tuned. We've got the president. We're going to go to him next, but we want to come back to you.
Okay.
Going back to Washington after my remarks, Secretary of Rod Pace and Lieutenant Governor will take the podium and discuss education. I do want to thank the folks here at Booker Elementary School for their hospitality. Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
You have just heard President Bush acknowledging that this was an apparent terrorist attack today on the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. He has ordered a full-scale investigation and offered, of course, his prayers for whatever victims there might have been of this tragedy. And again, we have no information about who has been hurt, who was killed, if anyone. We know nothing other than the fact that there has been this apparent attack involving 2 aircraft. Can we go back to the telephone and Richard Thompson now? Are you still there, sir?
Yes.
Again, you are a licensed pilot. You were describing to us that you saw what appeared to be a small business jet that was flying, that came screaming by your office window and went right into the tower.
Exactly. Is that being a pilot is the first thing I recognized, that there was no way that a business jet could be flying at that level at this time of day over the city without special permission. So that I tried to crane my head out the window, but within 5 seconds before I could open my window and look out, it already had flown directly into the building. And being a pilot, I know that you could have avoided that at 99%. If you were in trouble flying that plane, you could have avoided that building. And so whomever was at the controls directly flew that thing right into the side of that building.
Could you, again, did you see the second aircraft? Apparently it might have come in from the other direction.
No, I couldn't see it. I was looking at the building when it hit, and I saw my colleague Tim Lufkin and I saw it hit the building, but we did not see it fly into the building. We saw the explosion from it.
And again, I guess we're still trying to figure out, there are some reports that these planes were hijacked. The FBI is said to be investigating that. But the one that you saw appeared to be a small business jet.
Yes. And the second plane was obviously a larger plane because the explosion from the second plane was tenfold larger than the first plane.
Okay. Mr. Thompson, we appreciate very much the information you've given us this morning.
And may God be with all those people, because this is going to be a tough day for all of New York.
Yes, it is, and we thank you.
We now have reports that the New York Stock Exchange is being evacuated in the wake of the disaster at the World Trade Center. They had planned to open as normal, so right now everything at the Stock Exchange is on hold. And right now, let's go down to Joe Avalar, who's on the street downtown. Joe?
All right, we're down here in Soho, as a matter of fact. You're looking at a picture from Prince and Worcester Street, and on the ground you can see what has happened all over Manhattan. People are stopped and they're staring. They're looking up and they're trying to figure out all of what's happening. In talking to some of these people, I met someone, Philip Russo, who actually witnessed the whole thing. You were driving east on Bleecker Street, that's correct?
That's correct. I was driving east on Bleecker Street.
Have you step around this way? We'll put it in the background.
I heard what sounded like a jet flying very low. I looked up, I saw a blue and white jet, 2 engines, going obviously in the wrong direction.
You were thinking jet, you were thinking 737, something like that, a large jet.
A large jet, a large commercial jet, but with no markings that I could identify other than blue stripes on a white plane. It sounded too low. I looked up, it looked too low, going in the wrong direction, and I followed it into the building.
Flew straight into the building?
Straight into the building, dead on. Disgusting sight.
Then you continued to look up at the building and you saw the second jet.
Well, then we were looking for about 5 minutes, just in horror at what happened, saw a second jet coming from the west that looked identical, both in color and in form, and it smashed right into the second building. Huge explosion on this side facing us.
Now we're all standing out, we're staring at the building, all of us, in horror.
Yeah, it's the only way to describe it. Horror, sadness, and disgust.
You talked about fear and being scared.
What next?
And feelings of vulnerability.
Two huge planes crash into, the World Trade Center. What's going to happen next?
Mr. Russo, thank you very much for talking with us. As we look back up at the World Trade Center, and I know you can see it better with helicopters, but you can see it from the ground here as well. The picture that we are looking at, that most of Lower Manhattan is looking at, flames inside the World Trade Center and the huge hole, and we can all see how the flames have spread to upper parts of the building, how it's billowing out of the building, and how the other building is occluded. And everybody from this vantage point is, as Mr. Russo is saying, looking at it in horror, looking at it in fear, worried about yourself, I imagine. Where were you, sir?
Right underneath the Trade Center when it hit. Second one, both of them hit. We ran like hell all the way up here.
Did you happen to look up?
Yeah, we seen the second one run right into. We're unloading the truck. We got right out of there. Scariest thing I've ever seen in my life.
The planes never veered, did they? The jets just went right into it.
The second one, we heard the first one and seen everything flying out of the building. And the second one, we actually seen run right into the building. It came right from behind the building, ran right into the other side of the first tower, the further one down.
It's a terrible question, but what are you thinking about when you're looking at something like that?
I'm telling you, we ran because stuff was flying everywhere. It's the scariest thing in my life.
And that's...
Never seen anything like it. Never seen anything like it, man.
And your name, sir?
Sean O'Neill. Still tell my wife I'm all right.
As it is a way for people to let them know everybody's okay as they stand and watch this in horror. You're just walking through the area, sir?
No, I was with him.
You were with him?
And we heard the explosion. And I'll never forget that explosion, I'll tell you that. We were just under some scaffolding and debris started falling all over the place.
Now, people here talked about the second explosion and didn't think it was that loud, didn't feel that it was...
We were there. It was loud. I'm going to tell you that. We were right there for both of them, and it was loud.
Windows coming down off the building.
We just had like rocks and stuff, just every type of debris you could think of, just falling all over the place.
Now, you were there when this happened.
Yes, we were right there.
Why did you stop up here in Soho and then turn around and look at it?
You just have to see what happens.
Time we turn around and look.
You really, we're just running from there. I mean,
First
be honest
to run
with you.
for safety, basically.
Yeah.
To get out of there.
And I don't know why. There's a whole bunch of people driving down for someone down there, just blocking the fire trucks and everything. We were trying to clear the streets and let fire trucks go through. And
it's a madhouse down there.
It's a madhouse.
That's really a good point to New Yorkers who may be watching us, however they're watching or listening to us right now, is to try to get out of that area to let the emergency crews do what they need to do.
Yeah.
Because there are clearly people still trapped up there, and firefighters and emergency crews still need to do a lot of work. And you can see as we're standing here that fire is spreading to different parts of the building, different floors, as it continues to engulf the building. Just a horrible, horrible sight from here in Soho. It is sad.
Saddest thing I've ever seen, man. Shoo.
It's sad. It's nothing like I've ever seen. Nothing like anybody here in New York has ever seen either. That's the scene here from Prince and Worcester Street, and we'll talk to some other people as time goes on.
Joe, you are not close enough to... Okay, apparently Joe cannot hear us, so thank you, Joe. We appreciate that. Obviously, we are, again, trying to ferret out all the information we can about exactly what happened in Lower Manhattan this morning. The president has said it was a terrorist attack. There were 2 airplanes involved. Dozens of eyewitnesses have told us that. One of them appeared to be bigger than the other. The second bigger than the other.
And we all witnessed it right here on live television. Caught us all completely off guard. A normal work day here in Manhattan has come to a standstill. We've been told that the subway lines 1, 2, 3, and 9 have been shut down. All the Hudson River crossings have been shut down. The New York Stock Exchange has closed down for the day. And right now, a lot of people are just stunned in shock. Again, 2 airplanes, 2 separate incidents, minutes apart, crashing into both towers of the World Trade Center. And you certainly see the result as far as the structural damage. I mean, it is major. And as you said, President Bush said that this is an apparent terrorist attack. We expect to hear from Mayor Giuliani in just a couple of minutes. Governor Pataki is in town. As a matter of fact, he does have an office in the World Trade Center, but President Bush says that he has talked to the governor.
Right.
So as far as we know, the governor is okay. And like I said, we should hear from Mayor Giuliani in the next couple of minutes.
But again, to reiterate, we know nothing about what happened to the people who work on in those floors, in those buildings. So we are simply waiting to find out about injuries and casualties, if indeed that's what happened. So you were looking at a scene that one would wish you could never witness in a city like this.
And of course, this is the second major attack on the World Trade Center. There was the bombing back in 1993. And of course, that was at the bottom. And the top of the building, obviously very vulnerable, and we certainly witnessed that today.
Right, with all the security changes that they've made on the bottom, so nobody can get up there without the right kind of clearance. But it's vulnerable to attack by air.
Absolutely, you can't stop it up there.
We are going to once again go to Katie McGee because, as we've been telling you, the city is literally at a standstill. No one's being allowed in from any of the river crossings. And the subway lines have been shut down in that area, and the airports are all closed. Katie, what more can you tell us?
Jane, this is the latest. The city at this point is at a standstill. All three major area airports, LaGuardia, Kennedy, and Newark, are closed at this point to all incoming and outgoing traffic. All bridges and tunnels. No one is letting any traffic head into town. At this point, outbound, you are going to find some people. We just saw some folks that had been sitting in one of the tubes coming out of the Lincoln Tunnel. They were allowed out, but now everybody being turned away. We also saw a backup down near Canal Street waiting to get into the outbound Holland. Those people also being turned away. At this point, again, no one being allowed to head into the city. For all intents and purposes, all train service suspended is what we're hearing at this point. Police are saying, please leave the city if you can. Of course, this is rough because of the way traffic is right now. You really, really want to steer clear of anywhere south of Midtown, and again, everyone right now being turned away. We saw traffic trying to get into the Lincoln Tunnel, actually turning around and backing up buses, New Jersey Transit buses, bringing people back into New Jersey, never even making it close to the entrance to the Lincoln Tunnel.
Katie, what do you think right now would probably be the best way to get out of Manhattan? Probably head up the FDR and the West Side Highway?
At this point, you're going to want to try and get as north as possible. I can see from one of my cameras live right now the westbound Cross Bronx heading in towards the outbound George Washington Bridge. Traffic is an absolute crawl right now, but they are letting you get onto the bridge and, from what it looks like, come in over it and back into New Jersey. I do see traffic coming outbound George Washington Bridge, inbound again, completely stopped. If you were planning on heading into the city, even if you think you may still have a meeting, at this point, again, you're being advised to please stay where you are.
For example, if you lived in New Jersey, your best bet probably would be go through Westchester County, cross the Tappan Zee Bridge, and come back down?
You may want to try that out. Let me take a look right now and see how my Tappan Zee Bridge camera looks. Just bear with me for 1 second, and I'll tell you. Actually, it looks like right now, traffic heading into Westchester is moving, but it's at a crawl. Again, at this point, things are happening so rapidly. If you were to leave home in Westchester right now, I can't tell you you'd definitely be able to get into town in another half an hour, 40 minutes or so.
Well, it sounds to me like
Jane, we're just getting a report that there's been an attack on the Pentagon. This is the Pentagon. This is from the network. This is the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia.
These are pictures that have just come in to us here at News Channel 4. You are looking at live pictures of what appears to be an attack on the Pentagon. We can tell you nothing more than what you were looking at. This is approximately an hour ago that we had one airplane crash into the northern of the World Trade Center towers, and about 18 minutes later, another airplane crashed into the southern of the towers, and now we have this.
We also hear that the first plane that hit the World Trade Center was apparently hijacked after takeoff from Boston. It means there's a very good possibility that that plane did have some passengers on board.
Do we know what kind of an airplane is it? What does it say? It doesn't say?
At this time, it does not say. It just says the first plane that hit the World Trade Center was hijacked after takeoff from Boston. That according to a U.S. official.
Now, according to the pilot that we had on a few minutes ago, he said that appeared to be a smaller jet, business type of jet.
Yes.
So perhaps it was some sort of a commuting airline or something like that. Let us go back and listen to what President Bush had to say a few moments ago. This was before this latest explosion at the Pentagon.
Today, we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President to the governor of New York, to the director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you.
This was President Bush about 20 minutes ago. But now let us tell you that since that statement, there has been an explosion at the Pentagon, and we have on the wire now a story that says an Associated Press reporter saw the tail end of a large airliner plunge into the building. And
this is a live picture of the White House. We understand the West Wing has been evacuated. Again, the president is not at the White House in D.C. He is down in Sarasota. He was reading to a class of children at a school when he was told what happened, and that's where he held his press conference. But again, two planes have hit the World Trade Center, and now witnesses say just a few moments ago in Arlington, Virginia, another plane has plunged into the Pentagon.
And again, we have no information about exactly what happened down there, other than the fact that some sort of an aircraft has crashed near or into the Pentagon. So obviously, it is a day that we are witnessing something we have never seen before, and we don't know anything more about who's responsible for it than we have since the very beginning, which was about an hour ago, which was when the first aircraft,
as the president said, apparently a terrorist attack.
Exactly, and he has ordered full-scale investigations and has vowed to use every effort he can and that this country can to find out who is responsible and to bring them to justice. We have had numerous eyewitnesses who have talked about the airplanes that they saw literally smash into those two buildings about 18 minutes apart within the hour. And obviously it was something that they witnessed with shock and with horror. And we have nothing to tell you at this point about the number of injuries or the fatalities. We understand Mayor Giuliani is about to hold a press conference,
yes,
and perhaps he will be able to give us some more information about all of that.
This just crossed about the Pentagon. An Associated Press reporter said he saw the tail end of a large airliner plunge into the building. He says smoke is billowing out of the Pentagon. So obviously now we're looking at the hijacking, probably, of 3 commercial airliners here in the United States. We know the first one
that
plunged into the World Trade Center came from the airport in Boston. And through a transmission, they learned that that plane was hijacked.
We should also warn those of you who are watching us that if you have plans to come into New York City today, you must cancel them. The city is literally shut down. The stock exchange has been closed. The airports are closed. The bridges, the tunnels, closed inbound and pretty much outbound at this point. The subways, all train service has been stopped. So we, of course, recommend that you stay put wherever you are and stay tuned to find out exactly what is happening.
And we've just learned that after what has happened at the Pentagon, that the West Wing of the White House has been evacuated, as well as the U.S. Capitol now. So I'm sure all government buildings are being shut down in the nation's capital and pretty much around the country. And I'm sure that we are now we're on terrorist alert, probably nationwide, I would think.
And there's another report that's just come over that says the White House was threatened with a terrorist attack, a source says. We have another report from an eyewitness at the Pentagon. Says it was a huge fireball, a huge orange fireball. And another witness said that it might have been a helicopter that exploded. We've had an AP reporter who says it appears to him to have been a large airliner of some sort. And we do have reports that, of course, the FBI is investigating reports that it could have been hijacked aircraft that crashed.
As a matter of fact, the FAA has just now halted all air traffic throughout the United States. So as of right now, there are no commercial airliners in the air.
I doubt that that has ever happened before in this country.
I don't think so.
So again, we do have a bulletin that I see here that says a Palestinian DFLP official denies any kind of responsibility for the World Trade Center crash. You know, again, everybody is trying to find out exactly what it is that has happened here. We simply do not know who is responsible. If we might, could we see the video again that showed us the second airliner crashing into the southern of the buildings?
Now, as you see, you will see in a couple of moments here, a plane will come into the picture from the upper right-hand corner of your screen, if you're watching at home. Coming down here in just a few seconds as our camera backs up from Chopper 4. There you see the plane coming into the picture. It will dip down below the first building. We don't see it for a couple of seconds, and then it comes back out and slams into the other tower at the World Trade Center.
Again, this has all happened within the past hour and 5 minutes or so. We are witnessing things that we've never seen anything like it before. Obviously, there was a terrorist attack back in 1993, about 8 years ago, on the Twin Towers. At that point, 6 people were killed, 1,000 people were injured. Major security measures were put into effect after that, making sure that people did not get into that building unless they had the proper clearance. But obviously, the buildings today were vulnerable to air. We do not know anything about the people who were working inside those buildings. Obviously, it's a full work day in New York City, a Tuesday in September, and it's also primary day. So people were going to work as usual. Now, it happened a few minutes before 9 in one of the buildings.
Yes.
One would assume that maybe some of those offices weren't quite open yet.
I would think so. A lot of people had not arrived at work. We certainly hope that is the case. As you said, the first explosion, the first plane slamming into the first building, a plane that was hijacked from Boston, happened about 8:50, somewhere between 8:50 and 9 o'clock this morning. And it was 18 minutes later, we saw right here on our live picture from Chopper 4, the second plane, which witnesses have described as a full commercial airliner, slamming into the second tower. And you saw the dramatic explosion. And of course, just a couple of minutes ago, witnesses say that another commercial airliner has slammed into the Pentagon down in Arlington, Virginia. The U.S. Capitol and the White House have both been evacuated, and we understand that the White House had received a threat of a terrorist attack.
Now we're looking back at the Pentagon. Again, you can see the smoke billowing from there. We have no other information at this point about casualties or injuries or exactly what it was that smashed into the Pentagon earlier today. That happened, what, 25 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago? Something of that sort.
One of the other pictures we actually saw a member of the military in full fatigue.
Outside the White House.
Outside the White House, fully loaded and ready to go for anything.
We expect that Mayor Giuliani is going to be speaking shortly. As you can imagine, I'm sure there is a scene of much confusion now at downtown in Lower Manhattan, outside the World Trade Center towers. We have just been told that the Pentagon is being evacuated at this point. And we're looking back at the World Trade Center towers here. The smoke continues to billow. The fire is clearly not under control yet.
Jan, we have another witness on the telephone of the second plane slamming into the second tower. His name is Robert Thomas from Brooklyn Heights. Can you hear me, Robert?
Yes, I can.
Can you tell us exactly what you saw?
I was on the roof deck of my building watching the fire from the first explosion, and I was on the phone with my parents in Florida, and I watched the second plane coming in from Staten Island-ish area, and I was telling my mom on the phone, that plane is too low. I can't believe it's that close to the building after the first one hit. And it was gray on the top plane. It was about the size of one of the shuttles, maybe coming from D.C. area. It was not a small plane. It was like a 737 or something. And whatever airline is gray on the top. And I saw it hit the building. I have a very good friend who works at Windows in the World, the pastry chef, Heather Ho, and I hope to God she's okay today.
Have you attempted to reach her?
I tried to call her at home. The work number is busy, of course. And I tried to call her at home and got her message.
Okay. Again, we've been talking about how the FBI is reporting, or is investigating reports that at least one aircraft, if not two, were hijacked earlier today. So from your vantage point, what you could see appeared to be the size of perhaps a shuttle aircraft.
Right. It was not a small plane. It was a big plane.
Okay.
I know people have been saying a small commuter, but it wasn't small. It was definitely a, it definitely held a good group of people.
Could you see Could you see anybody through the windows or the cockpit of that aircraft?
No,
or were you too far away?
It wasn't that close, but I could clearly see the plane coming in. I could clearly see it aiming straight for the building. It was in a long, swooping motion. It wasn't a jerky flight. It went straight into it.
Oh, my.
And it was it was so low, it was unbelievable to watch. I tell you what, I'm scared right now.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments, and we thank you very much for giving us this information, because, of course, we are trying to find out exactly what happened on this Tuesday morning.
Jane, we're learning the State Department has also been evacuated. The Associated Press has learned that the White House was evacuated after the Secret Service did receive a credible threat of a terrorist act against the White House.
Does it say what time that threat came in?
No, it does not. So we don't know if it was before the planes crashed into the World Trade Center or after.
What we're seeing now is that there's information that the aircraft at the Pentagon crashed in a helicopter landing pad near the Pentagon. Again, the West Wing of the White House evacuated amid threats of terrorism.
As well as the U.S. Capitol and the State Department now.
Exactly. One of the planes, we're also being told that one of the planes that crashed into the World Trade Center had been hijacked after takeoff from Boston, as you've just said, citing a transmission from that airplane. Let's go and review for you exactly what has happened as a result of all of this. All airplane traffic across this country,
yes,
has been grounded. There are no airplanes leaving or land. I would assume they can land, those that are up in the air.
Right.
But there are no aircraft that are going to be leaving any of the airports around the country for at least the time being. We do not know how long. It is virtually impossible to get up into this city right now. The bridges, the subways, the tunnels, everything is shut down. There are major traffic jams from people who were trying to leave or trying to get in. Obviously, it is a good day to stay put wherever you are. Obviously, the airports here are all closed.
Right.
The stock exchange has been closed.
Closed down. Subways, the 1, 2, 3, and 9, all train service in and out of the city is now shut down. And you know, not that in the big picture, this is really not that important at this moment, but you have to wonder if maybe the primary election will be possibly be suspended because of this.
Well, people can't go to their polling places.
You're absolutely right.
And you know, and I'm sure that's something that they will sort out later.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure not a single one of these candidates is worrying about that at this moment.
No.
We heard the president call this a terrorist attack. That was before the explosion at the Pentagon. So the president is being fully briefed. He said he had talked to the governor. Now, the governor has an office in the World Trade Center. He was in Manhattan, but we do not know where he is. President Bush has said he has talked to the governor, so we assume that he is safe at this point. We are waiting for the mayor to give us some kind of information about casualties or injuries this morning.
Okay, we have another reporter out on the street, Walter Perez. Can you hear us, Walter?
Here we are about 2 blocks away from... Okay, 2 blocks away from where the whole thing happened, and this entire area has been cordoned off, and people that have been working in nearby buildings have been told to evacuate. That's what this mass exodus is to my left-hand side. To my right, we have 2 witnesses, and as we speak with you two, we're going to pan up and show a shot of what we see from this vantage point. First, Marna Ringel, and Marna, you work across the street. Tell me exactly what you saw on the street, and as you looked up what you saw, because you said you saw the second one, am I correct?
No, I didn't see the second one. I actually was coming out of the building, and there was maybe about 30 or 40 people at the bottom of One World Financial covered in blood. I did not expect that at all, and I work for Lehman in One right here, and a gentleman that I work with was on the telephone. He said, "What was that?" I said, you know, he thought it was thunder. I looked over, screamed, "It's a bomb," because I saw a piece of the building flow down, and I think I scared my entire floor because I can scream pretty loud, and it was pretty bad.
Now, you mentioned that you saw people on the road outside of the building. Explain that scene.
I saw there's maybe about 30 or 40 people covered with bandages and blood. It looks like a lot of them were either on the floor of one of the exchanges. There's actually, oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
We're not sure exactly what happened, but it was another explosion on the far side of one of the buildings from where we're standing. The reverberation and another explosion on the right-hand side. Another building has gone up on the right-hand side of the road. People are now running down the street. We're not sure if that was another explosion or if that was advanced debris. Joining me also is Jim Plant. Jim, you're also a witness of what happened Tell me exactly what you saw from your vantage point across the street.
I was just across Liberty and West here, and I saw the second plane hit the Tower 2. Looked like a 737. It hit a glancing blow. It didn't hit it direct. I don't know where the rest of the plane went, but it went in, fireball came out, and it hit lower than the first plane, which hit the upper floors.
Jim, thank you very much. At this point, as you can tell, there's absolute pandemonium in this area because of what had just happened. Exactly what, I can't confirm, but on the far side of the building, there seemed to be another explosion, and also on the right-hand side, there was also another explosion. We're not sure if that was extra reverberation from what happened at the World Trade Center, or if that was an added explosion. At this point, there's a lot of smoke, massive plumes of smoke falling from the building across the street. People that were running down the street or walking are now running away. We don't have any information as far as what the most recent reverberations were, but from 2 blocks away, you could feel what happened. We'll get more information and pass it along to you.
All right, thank you very much, Walter. Again, 1 or 2 more explosions again around the World Trade Center. We don't know if it was in the same building or adjacent buildings.
Can we re-rack that video that we were looking at as Walter was interviewing those people, because perhaps that will give us some indication of what this was. Obviously, there are buildings nose to nose down there.
Yes.
We have no idea if this was a third explosion or if it might have been something from the debris raining down from one of the World Trade Center towers. It appears to be to the south of those buildings, but take a look at those pictures, and that is quite an incredible sight.
Again, this all started this morning at about 10 minutes to 9 o'clock. We understand that a commercial airliner, maybe a small commercial airliner, was apparently hijacked leaving the airport in Boston, Logan Airport in Boston, and slammed into one of the towers. About 18 minutes later, a second commercial airliner, which witnesses tell us was much bigger, slammed into the second tower. Soon after that, we heard from President Bush that said this was an apparent terrorist attack. Not long after he talked, a plane crashed very close to the Pentagon. From what we understand, down in the nation's capital, the White House, the U.S. Capitol, and the State Department have all been evacuated, and that the Secret Service did receive a very real threat that the White House would also suffer the same fate as the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, which has not happened yet, and we hope it doesn't. And of course, all commercial traffic around the United States has been shut down.
Air traffic,
yes.
Commercial air traffic.
All commercial air traffic.
Joining us now is Jim Rosenfield, who's been up in the newsroom. Do you have anything you can add to all of this?
Well, just, you know, in getting here to Rockefeller Center this morning to share with you, because you've been here in the studio, just the scenes on the street, people on their cell phones trying to find out what's going on, people calling loved ones, trying to find out if they're okay. As you walk into this building, a lot of people out on the street not being permitted to go up and down through most of the elevators for security reasons. Obviously, as we think about the landmarks in Manhattan, people are taking very serious security precautions just for that reason. A lot of emotions I should share with you up in the newsroom, too, as we hear these just gut-wrenching eyewitness accounts of what these people must be going through, especially in the Twin Towers right now. Just amazing.
We have just been told that this, what we thought was another explosion, was indeed, according to the Associated Press, another building that has either been attacked or exploded. So it appears to be separate from the 2 that we have already witnessed this morning. And if you take a look at this scene right now, the smoke that is billowing over Lower Manhattan is truly a frightening sight to see. Again, the part that I think concerns all of us is that we have no knowledge of what happened to the people who might have been inside any of those buildings. It's a normal workday, and although the first explosion came early, it might have meant some people weren't there yet, but I guarantee you that there are a lot of people who were already in those buildings.
Sure, in the Twin Trade Towers, a lot of state workers in those buildings who get there well before 9 o'clock. And as you come down some of the major arteries in Manhattan, you can just see this smoke from miles away. A very eerie sight as I was coming towards Midtown. You look up, and there's the smoke coming out of the World Trade Center.
How did you come to work today?
I actually walked most of the way because traffic is, as you would imagine, a complete mess. Emergency vehicles trying to make their way all down to downtown to Lower Manhattan. So it's difficult for anybody who's trying to get around. Bridges and tunnels, as you've been mentioning, are closed. So getting on and off the island isn't going to happen right now.
Okay, Jim, right now we have a terrorism expert on the telephone, Harvey Kushner. Harvey, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Harvey, this obviously has all the earmarks of terrorism.
Yes, unfortunately it does. And, you know, I've been in this business almost 40 years, and quite frankly, I couldn't have written a scenario like this. If I would have come forward with something like a possibility like this, they would have laughed. I mean, this has all of the worst-case scenarios put together into one. This is monumental. This will be something that, you get Gary Condit in the news, you have O.J. This is something that we're going to be looking at for the next couple of years, unfortunately, and not just from a media perspective, but from the people who've witnessed this. I mean, when you think of the psychological trauma this is going to cause to New Yorkers and to Americans, it's monumental. It's off the map.
As you see the scope of this and the methodical way in which it appears to have been planned and happened, and again, we don't know what truly occurred, but there's talk of aircraft being hijacked, right, of second explosions, of et cetera, et cetera. What, if there are signals you can read in that as an expert on all of this, what can you tell us about that?
Well, it shows that, in the last couple of years, and I just got off of the embassy bombing trial, I was involved in that, and I've seen a picture painted of Osama bin Laden, not to say that he's involved in this necessarily, but of his network and his ability to try to do damage to the United States. And over the last couple of years, a lot of terrorism experts worldwide have been talking about the day of the freelancer, for those not familiar with the term, individuals who do things by themselves. Obviously, this type of event which occurred today is something that costs a lot of money, a lot of planning, such as what happened in the embassy bombing trial, had to blow up 2 embassies. And obviously, they had the will and the desire, many people, to be able to pull something like this off. I mean, think about hijacking a plane, the difficulties involved in that, but yet to have it flown into a building is just monumental in terms of timing, in terms of the ability of the number of people on that plane. I mean, if I had to surmise, I would think it wasn't just one individual. It had to be groups of individuals to be able to control something like that, to pull something like this off. And if the reports are true that we're having a coordinated attack at other American targets, such as the Pentagon or the White House or other buildings, this indicates that we're facing a new era. We're back to the old state sponsorship, large groups being involved in having the wherewithal and intelligence and the ability to pull something like this off. I mean, this is very, very serious. I've been involved throughout the years in these various different exercises that we played, where we would talk about an event such as this, such as a biological attack or some other type of thing occurring. But this type of scenario never really was painted, because the type of planning to go into something like this was just thought to be not as possible as the launching of a chemical or a biological, even a small nuclear weapon. I mean, this is just something that, brings goosebumps to me. And I've seen everything. I've been through everything. And this one tops it all in terms of the temerity, in terms of the planning, in terms of what the aftermath is going to be, the shock to the American psyche, to the American public. I mean, think about this. We try to calm people down by telling them, the chances of you being involved in a terrorist act is very, very small. What do we tell people now when they walk around New York City and look up and see the trade towers on fire? We see other buildings exploding. We see people crying in the streets. I mean, this is a horrific event, and it's a very, very sad day in American history. And
Dr. Kushner, I don't know if you're watching television, but we are now showing our very first pictures of some of the victims of this today, and we can see some horrific, what appears to be burns.
Yes.
Some serious injuries. Again, this is video that we have just gotten in.
Yes, I'm watching it. I can see it.
We've also been told that the second tower that was hit by the second plane, which is One World Trade Center, we understand that tower has actually collapsed at this point.
Well, I'm looking at this picture right now, and you cannot see the top of the second tower.
That's correct.
So a few moments ago, if you remember, there were just billowing smoke there.
We just have to hope that area was completely evacuated.
If I might just interject this, I was involved in a civil litigation against the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey because I was representing with a team of attorneys who represented 2 clients who were in the B2 level. And the trade towers was warned many years in advance that there's a possibility of having a bomb placed in the bottom of the building. And my report showed that the construction of that building was in such beyond the code that even such a powerful bomb couldn't do the damage. But now looking at these pictures as we speak, it just, I'm choked up looking at it, thinking that this type of risk assessment wasn't there and we didn't have, but how do you guard against something like this? This means that you have to put a perimeter around New York in terms of flight pattern, in terms of having jets ready to shoot down planes that are looking that they're going into buildings. I mean, this opens up a new level. This is ratcheted up a new level in the annals of terrorism and what we face here as a country and as a civilization worldwide. I mean, people were looking what was going on in the Middle East and not understanding the nature of the fear that people were going through on both sides. And now this to be visited here in the United States, in the capital of the world, the crosswords of the world, with the symbol of American capitalism and American might just in ruins, brings a tear to an eye. I mean, think of the humanity that's lost in this type of thing, but think in terms of what it's going to do to us as a country. I mean, what type of procedures will we have to put into place? What protocols will we have to put into place at our airports, at our borders to protect against this? There'll be a human outcry about security that has never existed before in this country. This is just monumental. This is something that happens and you're in history and you don't realize that the world is going to change after an event such as this. I can't see America going back to where it was in terms of not looking at security, not looking at the intelligence gathering, not looking at our ability to protect ourselves. This now is on the front page. It removes everything off. Every other story is gone. This is something that is going to be with us in the decades to come.
Dr. Kushner, if I might interrupt you, thank you very much. Please, will you stand by, because I want to ask you some more questions, but we need, for those, please stay on the line. The people that are just tuning in, we need to just reiterate and give them a bit more information here, because there have been a couple of recent developments that we need to tell people about.
One of the most startling is the fact that we now only see one tower of the World Trade Center Twin Towers standing. We've gotten word that one World Trade Center has either partially or fully collapsed.
It looks like a partial collapse.
Yeah.
We can still see below the smoke. This is actually tape. Okay, this is actually tape.
However, and this is, you are now witnessing
That's the collapse right there.
There it is.
Obviously, that structure weakened by the aircraft that we saw fly into it, over an hour ago now. That was the second tower that was hit.
But it was hit much lower. It was a good 30 stories down, something like that. It was about double the ways down from the first of the world towers.
Which the lower it is, obviously, the more vulnerable it is to have a collapse like that.
Now, I don't know if you've seen this, Jim. This is, all right, we are looking once again earlier.
This is about the point where I, too, tuned in to News Channel 4.
If you look up in your right-hand side, you will see an aircraft coming into the picture. It'll be there any moment.
Right there.
There it is. Now watch this.
I'll actually dip behind the first building. And there it is.
So it goes around behind that building and comes in from the left side, it appears.
It crossed over the Hudson.
Right.
And we have had eyewitnesses who have watched that aircraft. They told us it appeared to be a good size. They compared it to the size of a shuttle, like the Boston or Washington shuttle. And indeed, an aircraft was hijacked in Boston earlier this morning, and the FBI knew that because of some radio transmissions that came to them. So if you think about this theoretically, that may have been the aircraft that then went into that
and this isn't only New York that's under siege right now.
This was just the first. Not long after that, another commercial airliner crashed into the Pentagon, or right next to the Pentagon. That building's been evacuated, of course, in the nation's capital. The U.S. Capitol, the State Department, and the White House have all been evacuated. The Secret Service says that they received a very real threat on the White House today, and now we understand that the federal buildings in Newark have been evacuated. I would imagine that that is taking place pretty much around the country.
All planes have also been grounded nationwide by the FAA.
A lot of planes are still being diverted into Westchester Airport right now and into Syracuse to keep the planes out of the New York area, obviously.
But once those people who were headed for New York land in one of those airports, they are not going to get into this city anytime for the next few hours. That is certain, because virtually all traffic coming into the city has been shut off. The bridges, the tunnels, are all closed to incoming traffic and to a lot of outbound traffic. I don't know if anybody is getting out of the city at this point.
Did get a report that New Jersey Transit trains are still running under the river, so...
Okay. And again, if you can get out of town, that probably would be the wisest advice at this point. Most of Lower Manhattan has been evacuated at this point. And again, the subways are shut down.
Look at that, the Lincoln Tunnel at 10:15 in the morning over in Weehawken. Never looks like that this time of day.
It's completely empty. So again, let us bring you up to date on the fact that we know nothing about the number of casualties, the number of people who've been injured. We've seen photographs of some of the injuries, recent photographs. What we could see appear to be a lot of burns, a lot of lacerations, that sort of thing. We're waiting for the mayor to hold a press conference so he can bring us up to date on the extent of the human damage, so to speak, in all of this.
During this, the period that followed the initial impact on World Trade Center, the FBI did get word, as I understand it, in some sort of coded message perhaps, that there had been a hijacking, at least those are the reports, from the plane involved, one of the two planes involved, we presume, that then made its way directly into the World Trade Center tower.
And of course, we heard President Bush a short time ago call this a terrorist attack. That was before the attack on the Pentagon.
Yes.
Called this a terrorist attack and promised a full-scale investigation to find out who is responsible and to bring them to justice.
Jane, right now we have our Government Affairs reporter Melissa Russo on the telephone. Melissa, are you there?
I'm standing outside St. Vincent's Hospital right now, where the scene is absolutely unbelievable. When I arrived here, it was just as the second building explosion happened, and there is what I could describe as chaos in the streets here. There are hundreds of people just in shock, police officers telling people to go home, obviously worried about crowd control. But at the hospital, there has not been much activity in terms of ambulances arriving here, though you might expect there would be. After that last explosion, some ambulances took off and headed down 7th Avenue, which is otherwise closed to traffic. But St. Vincent's is obviously preparing for the possibility of many, many people arriving at their emergency room. They have what looks like a trauma center set up on the street, on the sidewalk of 7th Avenue. Dozens of stretchers, hospital personnel, nurses, with hospital equipment, IVs, out on the street, awaiting the inevitable, people in need of medical care. It's very disturbing.
So, Melissa, what you're telling us is that you have not seen the number of people that you might expect to be there after an explosion of this magnitude.
That's right. I've only been here for about, I would say, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, but we've seen a couple of ambulances come in. As I said, after that last explosion, I saw some more ambulances race out of here and head down 7th Avenue. But they're obviously preparing for people to be brought here on full alert. They have, as I said, dozens of nurses, nurses' aides out on the street outside the ER on 7th Avenue and 12th Street, stretchers lined up on the street. They're just waiting for people to become coming in, obviously, in need of treatment.
And we're looking right now, Melissa, at some tape that we saw earlier of a woman being taken for medical treatment. It did appear that she had some burns. This is some very...
And we are told that there have been some patients brought here. They probably arrived before I got here. We don't have numbers. We're waiting for a briefing from the hospital. The public relations person from St. Vincent's Hospital did come downstairs and alert the members of the press who are here that as soon as they have an update, they'll bring it to us. But obviously they're overwhelmed with preparing for, an all-hands situation here at the hospital.
Melissa, isn't it true that the Emergency Management Office of the City of New York is located in the World Trade Center?
It's located at 7 World Trade Center, not in one of those two buildings. But of course, it crossed my mind as it crossed yours that this is the place that was set up. You know, the nickname for it was the bunker. It was supposed to be a place that would be shielded from any kind of emergency situation, where the mayor and top emergency workers would be able to get together in case of this type of emergency. I have not spoken to the mayor's office yet this morning. I don't know where they are working. But it is in 7 World Trade Center, which is on the north side of VC Street, on the other side. However, it's very close. I mean, right across the street from those towers. I would be almost surprised if they felt safe to be there, although I don't know what it looks like on the ground at that part of the city right now.
And Melissa, we would assume that what you are seeing in the way of preparedness at St. Vincent's is being repeated at hospitals throughout Manhattan this morning.
I would imagine it is. I mean, you can only think the worst in this kind of situation. Obviously, hope for the best, but there's certainly, I'm sort of surprised that we're not seeing more ambulances arriving here. We are one of the closer hospitals. I mean, there's New York Downtown Hospital, which is right across the street from City Hall, essentially, in Lower Manhattan. And then we have St. Vincent's, which is here on West 12th Street. You're hearing some sirens behind me. Those are some additional police vehicles heading down 7th Avenue right now.
Melissa?
Yes.
If I could interrupt you for a second. There's an urgent on the wire that something has happened at the State Department. A source says, we don't know yet, we hear it might have been a plane. So there's a possibility now that a plane may have slammed into the State Department in the nation's capital.
That, of course, was evacuated about 45 minutes ago. So hopefully the people who were inside that building have safely left.
There's also information, Jane, on the plane involved, perhaps, in this incident.
It appears it might have been an American Airlines flight that was leaving Boston heading to Los Angeles. We're still making...
one witness described that as a gray plane on top, and that would be American Airlines.
Exactly. Yeah. So, again, let's go outdoors now to
Joe
Avalar, because he is on the scene in Lower Manhattan.
What we're standing here is we're in Soho. We're at the corner of Prince and Worcester Street, and what we're seeing is a lot of what's happening around Manhattan right now. In Lower Manhattan, people were in that area, and they ran as far as they could, as fast as they could. I've got a group of people right here. They were all in offices right close to the World Trade Center. Is that correct, sir?
That's right. Right across the street at 130 Liberty Street.
You heard the explosion, and then what did you do?
We heard the explosion, and we didn't know if it was a earthquake or whatever. And they came on the PA system and said it was a bomb, but then we heard it was a plane. So then we went back upstairs because we thought everything was okay. And then we actually didn't see the second plane, but we saw the explosion hit the other tower, and planes just came flying towards us.
And that's when you ran?
That's when we went to the other side of the building and then waited to hear from the PA system. Then they said they were evacuating everybody. And then we just walked all the way up Broadway, and glad we did because the whole building came down.
Just got out of the area as far as possible. And you've been trying to get through on a cell phone, too. That's been the other thing people are trying to do. Have you gotten out?
No, not at all. Some of us have.
Some of you have gotten, you just managed to get a call out on your cell phone. You're just trying to call friends and loved ones?
Just wanted to call my husband and let him know that I was all right.
This is terribly frightening.
Oh, my God. It's so upsetting to know that there are all those people that, people come in to work early down here, and it's really horrifying.
You were in work today. You're still in your work clothes. You evacuated along with all your friends here?
Yeah, I was with these guys. We were by the glass, and we saw huge pieces of flaming debris fall, and the building shook. And then, like he said before, we looped around. We went downstairs, went back up, and then we saw the second plane hit. And then shortly thereafter, we evacuated the building.
You stopped here. You turn. It's what everybody's doing all over the city. They get to a spot, they turn, and they watch. And you almost have to watch.
Yeah, it's surreal. It's like watching a movie.
It's surreal and it's horrifying at the same time. What was that?
Yeah, the top of the building. When we turned around, we just saw a big pile in the road because it had just fallen down. The whole thing is gone.
And now, of course, number 2 World Trade Center.
That's going to go down too.
It's gone, and then what we're looking at, spin around, we can see the picture from, this is from where we're standing. We're a good 20 blocks or more from the World Trade Center as we're standing here, and you can see the flames. You see where the hole is, and you can see how the hole, the original hole is, which is in the middle of the building. And if you look at it, you can see how the hole has grown. Also the flames below, maybe 10 floors below now, those flames have spread from the original fire. We've seen with binoculars, there have been people out here with binoculars, they've seen people in the buildings. There are still people in that tower. Another ambulance screaming through the area. You were in that area today.
Yes, I was on 299 Broadway when I felt a huge vibration. Thought it was an earthquake, didn't know what it was. People were running across the street, barefooted, some crying on the floor, almost like a stampede was occurring. Everybody just ran. This is where I'm at now. I don't know how many blocks I ran. I almost caught asthma by the time I stopped. Lost my cell phone. I can't even call my family right now.
And that's the big thing, of course, all the New Yorkers are trying to do. Everybody who is in that area, everybody who's in the city today is trying to get through, either a cell phone or finding a store or something. I did the same thing, trying to call the family, trying to call a loved one, telling them that you're okay. Talk to someone who was in the building, had just gone into one of the World Trade Towers when it all happened. He said from where he was in the lobby, there was a flush of debris and a flush of fire down one of the elevator shafts. He actually was singed, and he was in the lobby. This gentleman here, where are you coming from?
I was in the Century 21 building.
So you were downtown too?
Right. Our office points right at the buildings, and we're so accustomed to seeing people of all walks of life down in the lobby and everything, and every day, and then all of a sudden this happens at 9 in the morning, and fire came out from all sides of the building. And to us, we thought bombs went off or something, but apparently planes went. But it's a sad, very sad time for America.
What we're going to do is we're going to turn back to the tower right here. We're going to send it back to you, and of course what everybody is thinking is that our prayers are with the people who are in that tower. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Get an update on the State Department real quick.
Apparently it was a car bomb that exploded outside the State Department. That's according to senior U.S. law enforcement officers. The State Department had been evacuated previous, apparently, to this bomb. So one can only assume that the people that were in that building got out safe and sound. We certainly hope that they did. Let's go to Walter Perez. Walter is downtown in Lower Manhattan.
Okay, now as you can imagine, Ralph, as you can imagine, it is a pretty frenzied scene out here. Just a few moments ago, I'd say about 20 minutes ago, we're not sure exactly what it was, we have not confirmed it, but something either exploded or fell off the side of the one building that was attacked and caused a massive plume of smoke. As we turn left, you can see there's a trucks go by that they're spitting off smoke. These were the emergency trucks and ambulances that were near the building at the time that had happened. At that point, it wasn't so much of a frenzied scenario because people were walking away from the building. This entire region has been cordoned off, and people who are working in nearby buildings were told to leave and evacuate the area for obvious reasons, for safety concerns. When that second plume of smoke came up from the ground area, people started running. People were covered in soot. There were people with blood on their shirts, rips in their shirts, and at this point, looking up at the top of the building, at a rate of about 1 every 5 minutes, you see people that are jumping from the top of the building. It is an absolutely harrowing scene at this point. Police officials told us to evacuate the area that we were in. We moved about 2 blocks further, but the scene is very, very similar. Plumes of smoke all around the area, and people not exactly sure what's going on. All the telephone lines are jammed up as people are trying to communicate, not just police to other people, but folks who saw what happened, trying to communicate loved ones and let them know that they're safe. So it's a very hectic situation at this point. As we gather more information and we're sure we're settled where we're supposed to stop, we'll get back to you, because at this point, police are still not sure where we should be. And as you can see, a lot of police activity. They're trying to move the media to a safe area so we can do proper reporting and let everybody know exactly what's going on. For now, back to you.
Walter, have they given you any indication? I'm sorry, he can't hear me. All right. We simply do not know who has been hurt and what casualties might have occurred, which is the information that we are. I want you to take a look at what's happening right now. That is a live picture.
That's a live picture too.
That's World Trade Center 2 has just collapsed.
That's the second of the towers to collapse.
We are now looking at the collapse of the second of the World Trade Center towers. Again, this is something that we never dreamed we would witness in our lifetime. Let us tell you that to come into this city right now, you will not be able to. The bridges, the tunnels, shut down. Subway lines, trains, pretty much closed. The New York Stock Exchange.
Just a moment ago, the entire top of the building collapsed. You can see a massive plume of smoke. People are running away from the area. There are firefighters and there are police trying to evacuate the area as quickly as possible. People who are near the area are in an absolute frenzied situation. The entire top of the building just collapsed. You can see the plume of smoke is coming in our direction. Let's get out of here, Ralph. We're going to leave because the smoke is coming right at us.
Obviously, this is a devastating
They're
moment
gone.
in our history.
They're gone. The World Trade Center is no more.
We do not know at this point the extent of injuries or casualties, how many people were in these buildings trying to get out. We've seen some gut-wrenching descriptions, witness accounts of people hanging out of windows, jumping, trying to get to safety.
You see the obvious...
Look at the plume.
All right, let's go to NBC News right now.
We are back at 10:30 Eastern Time on this Tuesday morning, this horrific, incredible, not to be believed Tuesday morning. You are looking at live pictures of the World Trade Center where just a few minutes ago, within the last minute actually, the second Twin Tower collapsed. Just to recap, if you're just joining us, around 8:42 Eastern Time this morning here in New York City, a plane crashed into the right Twin Tower of the World Trade Center about 2/3 of the way up the building, leaving a huge gaping hole, a huge fire, and tons of billowing smoke. About 25 minutes later, a second jet, believed to be a 727 or a 737,
some reports of a 757 even,
then crashed in the second Twin Tower. The first plane, incidentally, was en route from Boston, Massachusetts to Los Angeles.
Here's the video, I think, of the second plane striking the tower.
That's right. We're not sure the origin of that plane, is my understanding. The first plane that caused that hole on the right-hand side in the other Twin Tower was from Boston to LAX to Los Angeles. It was Flight 11, American Airlines. We have confirmed that that plane was hijacked. What happened following the hijacking is unclear. We should note that about an hour after the first collision at the Pentagon, reportedly another plane crashed into the Pentagon, which is just outside Washington, D.C. in Northern Virginia. All air traffic has been stopped.
Government buildings have been evacuated, as have other buildings across the country. The Sears Tower in Chicago was evacuated. You can imagine that other buildings in major cities and small cities around the country are probably being evacuated as well.
There's an unconfirmed report of a car bomb at the State Department. We have not been able to pin that down. There is also, Jim Miklashevsky was told that there was an unconfirmed report of another air hijacking. We share this with you not in an attempt to in any way exacerbate what is already a terrible situation, but so much has come true today based on these early reports that we want you to have as much information as we can possibly get. At the Pentagon, all people outside were told to take cover just moments ago, but Jim Miklashevsky said the skies were clear.
There was an unconfirmed report of another hijacking with a plane headed towards Washington. Again, we don't want to sound alarmist, but that is something that Mick heard while he was at the Pentagon. We also want to mention that the president is en route from Longboat Key, Florida, where he was there to visit an elementary school to talk about literacy. Obviously, clearly, his agenda has changed dramatically. He will convene a meeting of the National Security Council as soon as he gets home. Colin Powell is also on his way back from Lima, Peru. He was scheduled to be in Bogota, Colombia.
And probably not at the White House. They'll probably take him to a safe location. There are a number of them, some in the hills of Virginia, as you know. And my guess is that Air Force One is in the unusual situation of having a fighter plane escort on its way back from Florida today. That's where we stand.
Think about the loss of life that we could have seen this morning. If you think about the fact that when full, the World Trade Centers hold about 50,000 people, no telling how many people were at work before 9 o'clock this morning and then shortly after 9 o'clock in the other tower. But if you look at this picture here, Tom and Katie, at Lower Manhattan, it appears that terrorists have succeeded this time in doing what terrorists tried to do back in 1993.
This is war. This is a declaration and an execution of an attack on the United States, two of our most conspicuous symbols of the American system of capitalism. The Pentagon, which of course is the headquarters of the most mighty military in the world, was attacked today as well. The White House has been evacuated. The State Department has been evacuated. Financial markets have been immobilized. All flights taking off after these attacks were grounded.
International flights have been sent to Canada.
It turns out it's transatlantic flights only going to Canada now. So there has been great chaos visited upon this country to say nothing, as you pointed out, Matt, so importantly, of the still untold loss of life, and it's going to be horrendous. We don't know yet what the exact numbers are, but we can only tell you by looking at those pictures that you can guess as well as that we can, that there are going to be a lot of people who are not going to be able to escape that.
Back in 1993, when the bomb blew up in the basement of the World Trade Center, so many survivors talked about how long it took them, with no power in the elevators, to walk down the smoke-filled stairways. And you think about how many people were still trying to escape those buildings when first one and then the second tower collapsed.
And of course, the triage unit that has been set up, area hospitals are all receiving victims. And as Matt said, 50,000 capacity when everybody is in the building. But many people at 8:42 a.m. here in New York are at their desks, working in their offices. One young man or one man was reached by phone and was asked, what is happening there? And he said, we are blanking, dying here.
Not to
and
mention,
there was screaming and yelling and pure chaos, understandably, going on in the background.
There's a picture of Lower Manhattan, ladies and gentlemen, the most important city in the world in so many ways. And now it has been attacked by terrorists at the World Trade Center, and the damage is beyond our ability to tell you in great detail.
Let me mention that,
I was going to say, here's what the president said. He canceled an education appearance in Florida. Here's what he said just a short time ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a difficult moment for America. I, unfortunately, will be going back to Washington after my remarks. Secretary of Rod Page and Lieutenant Governor will take the podium and discuss education. I do want to thank the folks here at the Booker Elementary School for their hospitality. Today we've had a national tragedy. Two airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence.
That was George W. Bush about an hour ago, speaking from Longboat Key, Florida. He is en route to Washington, D.C. We're looking at some pictures on the ground, or we were, of apparently some of the victims. He is on the ground.
Quite extraordinary. These are the emergency workers who are coming back. It was just about 10 minutes ago that we described to you the possibility of that North Tower collapsing. About 5 minutes after we went off the air, it did collapse. Once again, we have no idea at this point the loss of life. I can only tell you there were hundreds of emergency workers down there, about 5 or 6 blocks. It took probably about, I would say, no more than 50 or 60 seconds for that dust cloud, dust and smoke, to literally make it the 5 or 6 blocks up here and begin to envelop us, at which point we started to move out of the way. There were literally dozens and dozens of firemen who were trying to run past us. In fact, our cameraman even put one of the captains in his car and drove him down to a command post. The people who you see here are pretty much all emergency workers. Many of them that I have seen in the last 2 to 3 minutes, quite frankly, are coming out of here. And remember this, these are professionals. They're coming out of there looking literally stunned, in shock, many of them, struggling for breath, obviously in serious distress. Breathing problems are the biggest problem for those who manage to make it safely out of that area down below us. You can't see much more than a block south of me right now, and the World Trade Center probably stands about 10 blocks south of where I am at this moment. And as you can see now, the dust is beginning to pick up here. It really depends on which way the wind blows as to whether or not we get heavy dust or not. But at this point, I can tell you that in the first few minutes, emergency workers were trying just basically to get out of there, to survive. You could see that written in their faces. The situation was so desperate, they just wanted to get out of there. Now, many of them are beginning to regroup. A couple of them asked me where their commander might be. They're trying to get together and go back in there and try to take care of the people who obviously are in serious trouble. There's no other way to describe it. The language here, at times, if I slip into language which seems a little melodramatic, forgive me, but this is a circumstance which is very, very difficult to describe in many ways without sounding melodramatic. Certainly in more than 20 years of covering horrific events, this is something that I've never seen before. As we say, the emergency workers now beginning to try to gather themselves. Over there you can see a police emergency service unit. They're trying basically now to reestablish some kind of a safe perimeter. And many of the emergency workers basically just happy to be alive. Certainly that picture tells it all. Many of them just happy to be alive at this point, having survived what is an extraordinary event, the collapse of 2 towers. As we said earlier in our report, 110 stories each. I will tell you that what I saw fall had to be at least 40, 50 stories of that building at first. The skeleton was left at about, I would say, the 50 or 60th floor after the shell, after the structure of the building fell down. The skeleton, the steel skeleton, was literally sheaved off, and it took probably about another 30 seconds before the skeleton collapsed into the street. That was the last we saw of the World Trade Center, and that was maybe 10 minutes ago when that final skeleton, the metal skeleton, steel skeleton, collapsed into the street.
That was NBC's Pat Dawson again. He's standing about 10 blocks from where the World Trade Center towers used to stand. You're looking at the collapse of one of those towers right now. We now have an AP News alert out of Pittsburgh. Officials at Somerset County Airport are confirming the crash of a large plane just north of the airport. That's about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. Again, officials at Somerset County Airport confirm the crash of a large plane north of that airport, which is located about 80 miles to the southeast of the city of Pittsburgh. We do not know whether that crash of that plane is related to what has become an obvious terrorist attack both here in New York City and in Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon.
Matt, we just got a late word that State Department security officials are denying those reports of a car bomb at the State Department. Betsy Stewart is at the C Street entrance and also says there's no sign of a car bomb. Betsy Stewart is one of our producers who's very familiar with the State Department. The building has been evacuated. Top officials are still believed to be in the Operations Center, however. Those are highly secured areas in terms of penetration physically and otherwise. Colin Powell, as Andrea reported earlier, was headed for Lima, Peru, but he's done a U-turn and he's coming back. The president is on his way back. He'll have a National Security Council meeting, we think probably at around 11:30 or perhaps around noon. That is likely to take place either at Andrews Air Force Base or in some more secure location. The White House has been evacuated, especially with this report of another plane going down, this time in the Pittsburgh area. There were planes in the air when the order went out that there would be no more takeoffs, so we don't know how much more damage these terrorists had in mind.
Let's go to Bob Hager, who is, of course, NBC's aviation expert. Bob, what kind of information are you getting from your sources?
Not a lot, Katie, from the FAA. For instance, they are not talking about any possible hijacks. And normally they can tell when there's a hijack in progress because the pilot, the original pilot of the plane, has various buttons that he can push that set off a code and tell them that there were hijacks. But maybe as a matter of security, they're not saying anything about that. They did stop all takeoffs in the U.S. at 9:25 this morning, and then for pilots that were in the air, the question came up what to do about them, and they were given some discretion to continue on to their destination, so long as it was not the New York or Washington area, or divert to an airport if that's what they wanted to do. I saw the blast at the Pentagon, not the blast take place, but moments after it. I'd been at National Airport trying to get up to New York, and you could see that smoke billowing out of the Pentagon. I can give you a little description of what it's like on the streets of Washington, because it was quite crowded trying to work my way back here to NBC. They have now given not only the White House and those key buildings like the U.S. Capitol, but at this point they've given all federal employees the word to leave their offices and get home.
Right.
So there are traffic jams in Washington.
Okay, Bob, I'm sure you're going to get more information for us momentarily, but first we want to go to Jim Miklaszewski at the Pentagon, who has some more information. Mick?
Katie, they're still clearing people away from the Pentagon. Still, security forces believe that there may be another incoming plane headed in the Washington region. But there was a very telling, dramatic moment just a second ago when a U.S. Air Force F-16 flew very low level, did a wide sweeping turn around the Pentagon and back over Washington. And as one Air Force officer standing near me said, "My God, they're now flying air cover over Washington." A very dramatic moment, a milestone in what Tom has already described as a declaration of war, terrorist war against the U.S.
Let's go back and show you the pictures of Lower Manhattan, where the situation only gets worse, not better. That is the financial district of the world. It's also a residential area and a great commercial area. Both Twin Trade Tower buildings now have collapsed onto the ground. There is an untold loss of life. The ripple effect goes on with all the smoke and dust that is spread out across that very densely populated area. It goes down below ground as well as in the high-rise buildings there. There are many residential structures in that area as well. Some heroic rescue workers were down there trying to get people out of the building when the first building came down, and then the second building did as well. Without any sound, and looking at this, there is a kind of a surreal quality. But that is the epicenter of a great, great national tragedy and a great loss of life. No question about it this morning.
We're talking about people who were hurt, perhaps killed in this blast. Many of them have been brought to area hospitals, including St. Vincent's Hospital. Bob Bazell is there. Bob, what's the latest?
Well, Katie, ambulances continue to stream in. Several New York City streets have been closed. Major avenues have been closed off so that ambulances can continue to come in. In addition, the New York City subway system has now been closed down, and several buildings that were not involved in the World Trade Center area have been shut down, and people have been told to go home, but a lot of them are just wandering aimlessly on the street. Many people openly weeping and hugging each other. This is clearly is a time that, as Tom described, is very close to the beginning of a war. And but the casualties do keep coming in: burns, smoke inhalation, very severe. And again, all the medical people that I've talked to say this is just the tip of the iceberg. We expect casualties to be coming in all through the night and way into tomorrow and beyond.
Bob, if you could just stand by for a moment, because we have this report from AP that I'm just simply going to read. A large plane crashed Tuesday morning just north of the Somerset County Airport, about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. Airport officials said the plane, believed to be a Boeing 767, crashed around 10 a.m. about 8 miles east of Jennerstown, according to County 911 dispatchers. WPXI-TV reported. The crash came the same morning that terrorists crashed 2 planes into the World Trade Center in New York City, and the twin 110-story towers collapsed. Explosions also rocked the Pentagon and the State Department, although that was refuted moments ago, and spread fear across the nation. There was no other immediate details on the Pennsylvania crash, and it was not clear whether the crash was related to the others. Again, that was a report, a bulletin that was just issued by the Associated Press.
You know what is so stunning about all of this, Matt and Katie, is that there has been no indication whatsoever that this very carefully coordinated massive attack was going to occur. There's been a complete intelligence failure here.